Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you. So today I wanted to talk about Fydraulis Harmonia. This is a card that is coming up in the upcoming selection pack, was recently announced, and I think out of any card out of not only this pack, but possibly the last few, this will have the most impact on the metagame of any one individual card. Fydraulis Harmonia is a devastatingly powerful hand trap that you definitely need to be aware of. So while we've already discussed the card and its effects, got it on screen here if you're not familiar, in a recent video, today I wanted to actually take a look at some decks you would play this card in. Of course, we can look at the card and see its power level up front, but what all it slots in is definitely going to be a major factor for how the meta shifts as well. So I've got 5 different deck lists for you. We're going to go through each of them and we'll find out just how good this card ends up being. So before we get into that, let me first go ahead and give a huge shout out to our Patreon subscribers. For those who did not know, we actually have a Patreon over on patreon.com/hexlex where I upload videos that don't necessarily make it to the YouTube channel. It's a lot of reading new cards as they're revealed, like in the OCG and TCG. We look at metagame breakdowns. We cover replays I don't have time to get to here on the main channel. So if you're interested in seeing that exclusive content that does not get posted to YouTube, you're going to want to head over to patreon.com/hexlex. And much like the YouTube members, you will also get thanked in the end credits of every single video. So again, want to give a huge shout out to the Patreon subscribers. But without further ado, let's go and take a look at some of these deck lists. Now, the first and most obvious deck that Harmonia very easily slots into is, of course, going to be Kewl Tune. When you think of meta decks that are synchro-based, this should obviously be the first one that comes to mind. Now, at the time that I'm recording this, Harmonia has not actually been released in Master Duel just yet, so I've basically got the whole deck list here, minus Harmonia, and you can just use your imagination to just picture the Harmonia in here as well. But yeah, I don't think Kewl Tune really changes that drastically at all, as far as, you know, how it's built and what it's doing. Of course, the biggest impact to it has been the recent ban list changes, with Recco and Mix being semi-limited and the Kewl Tune Rotary being limited as well. There are, of course, a couple of extra deck monsters, though, that we weren't using before that are going to be in here specifically for the Fydraulis Harmonia. And you're going to see these across pretty much all of these decks I'm going to show you here. Those are Golden Cloud Beast Malong, as well as Enigmaster Packbit. Now, if you're wondering why these two specifically, it's of course important to remember that as part of Fydraulis Harmonia's effect, you not only get to destroy a monster your opponent controls and special summon Fydraulis Harmonia, but you also can send one of your revealed Synchron monsters to the graveyard. Golden Cloud Beast Malong has an effect that says if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target a face-up card your opponent controls and return it to the hand. Furthermore, Enigmaster Packbit states that during either player, we want the top effect here. If this card is synchro summoned or sent to the graveyard, you can target one monster in your graveyard or one face-up monster your opponent controls, discard one card, and place that card in its owner's spell and trap zone as a continuous trap. Now, Enigmaster Packbit is going to be a UR, so if you are not interested in crafting this, you know, right off the bat, just for Fydraulis Harmonia, you can definitely get away with Golden Cloud Beast Malong, and then for a second target, I would recommend the Wind Pegasus at Ignister, which states that if another card you control is destroyed by battle or your opponent's card effect while this card is on the field or in the graveyard, you can banish this card, then target one of your opponent's cards, shuffle it into the deck. Wind Pegasus does have a decent advantage over Packbit in that it doesn't require a discard, but it also only triggers when one of your cards is destroyed specifically by your opponent or by battle. So for that reason, I do think the Packbit is slightly better in terms of like overall general utility, but of course, again, the downside to Packbit is that it does require a discard. Malong is probably going to be the one you send the most often because it doesn't require a discard, but every now and then bouncing a card back to your opponent's hand just won't be good enough, so that's where the Packbit comes in. In any case, as mentioned before, Kewl Tune itself really does not play or build that differently with the addition of Harmonia. However, Harmonia being such a powerful hand trap will have a huge impact in Kewl Tune, and as a result, I think Kewl Tune will end up getting better, you know, in the upcoming metagame. You're gonna see with some of these other deck lists that you kind of have to make some deck building compromises to be able to fit in the Harmonia. Either that or other decks that would naturally want to play Harmonia are a little bit weaker in terms of power level. Kewl Tune, however, is in a very unique position where it's already definitely still a tier 1 deck and doesn't have to change anything about how it builds or plays to include the Fydraulis Harmonia. It's just another very powerful addition to the deck. Fydraulis Harmonia, of course, being a hand trap that is also a tuner, obviously is going to put in a lot of really good work for Kewl Tune. One thing I am actually noticing in my own list here, bit of a misplay on my part, we want the VODS Terra. I'm going to drop that Typhone in the list there for it. And the reason that I think in Kewl Tune it's a lot more important to play this Synchro monster in particular is for the fact that it is level 8. So with this, the Kewl Tune Rotary will actually be live with the Fydraulis Harmonia. It's not going to come up nearly as often now that Rotary is at 1, but for example, if you open Rotary and Fydraulis Harmonia and nothing else really, and you use the Fydraulis Harmonia effect to summon itself, you could then summon the Rotary, Synchro for 8, the VODS Terra, and then that would also trigger the Rotary effect, which would allow you to then search up a Kewl Tune spell or trap card, which would then get you into more of a full combo. So I do think that ends up being pretty important, and yeah, we just had Typhone in here before. I'll go ahead and cut that out. But if you're not playing, or if you do want to play Typhone or Little Knight or, you know, stuff like a second back-to-back, and you want a little bit more room in your extra deck, you could cut the Fallen and the Virtuous, which are on here. However, I think that Fallen and the Virtuous is still a highly, highly powerful card, and you're going to see it actually in multiple of these decks that are also utilizing Fydraulis Harmonia. I've seen the two compared to each other quite a bit lately, which makes sense, right? They both destroy cards, they're both good going first or second, they're both like somewhat generic, not like completely, of course, in the case of especially Fydraulis Harmonia, but they're enough so that multiple decks are looking to use them. That said, I think that they're both strong enough that there's no sense in not doubling up on the ability to destroy cards and stop your opponent's plays with ease. As mentioned, both this card and Fydraulis Harmonia are equally good going first or second a lot of the time. So really like having Fallen the Virtuous here. We've got room for it in the extra, but as mentioned, if you wanted stuff like, again, second back-to-back or second Loudness War or Typhone and Little Knight, you could consider cutting these and playing possibly some more tuner-based hand traps, right? Although I would kind of, I don't know. I guess to be fair, with the Fallen and the Virtuous, we kind of run into this problem too, but the consistency of Kewl Tune is not quite where it used to be. Now, I have seen some people, is this card called Stone Sweeper? Yes, I have seen some people playing the Earthbound Prisoner Stone Sweeper. You can discard it in order to add a level 3 or lower Fiend Tuner from your deck to your hand, but then you're locked into Fusion and Synchros. Obviously not a big deal for Kewl Tune, and as far as searching up a Fiend Tuner, you can always search the Kewl Tune Reco. But even aside from being a UR I don't particularly want to craft, this is not the most elegant solution because it does tend to play pretty badly into the Drawn Lockbird. That said, if you are looking to make your Kewl Tune deck more consistent, this is probably one of the better ways of doing it. Naturally, with Rotary being at 1 and multiple other Kewl Tune names being at 2, the Pot of Desires no longer really works out very well for a consistency option. I'm on 3 Duelist Genesis, but you could also very easily be on Overtuning as well. Very good spell card for the Kewl Tune deck. You probably don't need more than 1 copy of this, but it is definitely another option for sure. Over or even addition to the 3rd Duelist Genesis. 2nd JJ Kewl Tune I do think is also pretty good for consistency, so I'm going to be rocking that in my build as well. But yeah, with the addition of Fydraulis Harmonia, I think Kewl Tune actually really becomes a force to be reckoned with, and I actually think has a decent shot of reclaiming its title as the best deck in the format, but we'll have to see how things play out. Now, the next deck that I'm actually including Fydraulis Harmonia in is actually not even really a synchro deck at all. It's Mitsurugi, pure Mitsurugi. Yes, because Mitsurugi is a ritual deck, it does not care if you are only able to activate the effects of synchro monsters as far as monsters special summoned from the extra deck goes, because of course, ritual monsters are summoned from the main deck. So that's not the only reason Fydraulis Harmonia pairs very nicely though. In addition to Malong and the Master Pack bit, we actually have here another really potent target to send off the Fydraulis Harmonia effect, and that is going to be the Herald of the Arclight. Of course, if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add any ritual monster or ritual spell from your deck to your hand. So your opponent goes to make plays on their turn 1, and you've got Fydraulis Harmonia in hand. Not only can you special it and pop one of their monsters, but then you can send off Herald, and then add the Habakiri, and now you can go full Mitsurugi combo. So this list that I have here is pretty inspired by some of the OCG lists of Mitsurugi that were playing Harmonia when it first came out. But one pretty important distinction is that the deck in the OCG had access to, I forget what it's called. There's a new like Chaos End Ruler ritual monster, or it's like a retrain of Demise, King of Armageddon, basically, that can copy ritual effects. So yeah, that ends up being a pretty good consistency tool for Mitsurugi. And I think a pure Mitsurugi list like this is actually going to kind of suffer inconsistency a little bit. I'm playing a single copy of Lamia here because I don't own a third Aramasa, but ideally I would be on 3 Aramasa. Lamia is a fine budget substitute though, because it searches up any level 8 reptile, and it's not really like Aramasa is ever going to grab Kusanagi or Saji, so I think Lamia is a good functional replacement. But yeah, as you can see, we're on more of a pure list, and so as far as starters go, you know, we have the Aramasa plus Lamia is 3, Habakiri is 5, we got pre-prep to make 8, but that's really about it, which does end up being a little bit shy of where I would like to be a lot of the time. Of course, it's important to, again, remember that Fydraulis Harmonia does help buff the consistency of your deck by dumping Herald of the Arclight, but I hesitate to say that they are starters and that we have 11, because it's always going to be very conditional, right? Of course, the Fydraulis Harmonia can only activate if an opponent's monster on the field activates its effect. So if you are in a position where you can't resolve the Fydraulis Harmonia, you're obviously not able to use it as a starter to get your plays going. We're once again rocking the Fallen and the Virtuous here. You could just play 3 copies and go up to 41 if you wanted a full playset, but we're only on 2 here because I really think being at 40 cards for a build like this is super important. And honestly, if I did play 3 Aramasa, I might even consider just dropping something like the Triple Tactics talent and playing 3 Aramasa and then still the 1 Lamia in addition to that. But all said, I think that it's not just a pure Mitsurugi deck like this that would consider Harmonia. You could even also honestly consider using it in something like Ryzeal Mitsurugi. Now, obviously, that's going to be a lot more impactful if you resolve the Harmonia and then you can't do stuff like Detonator. But again, it's not like you can't summon the Detonator, you just can't use the effect. So you can't use the activated effect, but Detonator also has the effect where if one of your Ryzeal cards will be destroyed, you can substitute one of your materials and detach that instead. So who knows, even in Ryzeal Mitsurugi, maybe it actually ends up being worth it to play Fydraulis Harmonia, and then you could still have the 3k pseudo towers sort of body to help, in addition to, of course, all the Mitsurugi stuff. But I think that you will definitely see Fydraulis Harmonia in some amount of Mitsurugi, and other decks in the future that don't necessarily care about the extra deck lock, other ritual-based decks like the Ritual of Light and Darkness archetype. But we'll get to that whenever that archetype comes out here in Master Duel. Now, naturally, when I'm thinking of other recent synchro-based decks that are, you know, still meta relevant, Elfnote is one of the first things that comes to mind. In my research, I've noticed that it seems branded Elfnote has become by far the most popular variant of the deck, as opposed to like the Fiendsmith version, right? But I think you could use Fydraulis Harmonia in that sort of Fiendsmith variant as well. You just wouldn't then be able to do Fiendsmith plays. However, not only is branded Elfnote really popular and really powerful, but this also might be one of the better lists for Fydraulis Harmonia. You might be wondering, well, is that really the case? Because don't we want to use the, you know, Albaz effect on our opponent's turn? And the answer is yes, but you can totally still do that even if you're under Fydraulis Harmonia. Because remember, Harmonia says that you cannot activate the effects of monsters special summoned from the extra deck except Synchro monsters. So if you were to, for example, go through your branded Elfnote combo line, do all the Elfnote stuff, and then also set up the Ecclesia and the Dark Dragon going into your opponent's turn, even if you already resolved Fydraulis Harmonia, you could still, on your opponent's turn, activate Ecclesia and the Dark Dragon, summon Fallen of Albaz from your deck, and it's not like Albaz is a monster summoned from the extra deck, it's from the main deck. So Albaz could still fuse into either Mirror Jade or Dragon that Devours the Dogma off of your opponent's board, even if you're under Fydraulis Harmonia. So I really do think that, again, not only is this version of Elfnote currently really popular, but I think the inclusion of Harmonia actually makes it just that much better. I actually don't think I've tried branded Elfnote yet here on the channel, so I definitely would like to try it with the inclusion of Harmonia for sure. There are other builds I've seen of this deck where they play a lot more fusion monsters, a lot more of the branded options like the Rindbrum and that kind of a thing, but I really do think that all you need is the Mirror Jade and the Dragon that Devours the Dogma. These let you eat pretty much any board out there, and Dragon that Devours the Dogma is an especially good option for eating boards because it could potentially eat 2 of your opponent's monsters. And then we just have the Albion for the Fallen and the Virtuous, which once again we're on. But of course, being on a deck with more of the branded support, the Fallen and the Virtuous feels a lot more at home here. You could also, in this deck, if you wanted to, you could play Dogmatica Ecclesia in addition to the Incredible Ecclesia, because basically the idea here is a lot of the time we're using the Fallen of the White Dragon in order to set up the Cyframe Lord Omega and add a hand rip to our Elfnote combo line. But if you would rather than a hand rip have access to Fallen of the Virtuous, then you could also play a copy of Dogmatica Ecclesia, grab that off Fallen of the White, and then search up Fallen of the Virtuous. Because in a lot of combo lines, you'll do your Fallen of the White Dragon after doing all of your Elfnote stuff and, you know, setting up that side of your end board there. But yeah, obviously, like I said before, Elfnote, very recent synchro-based deck, so you can expect the Fydraulis Harmonia to slot very naturally right on into it. So this next list here for Elfnote White Forest is actually copied almost one for one from a list I found on Road of the King, which features a lot of OCG tournament and meta coverage. Whenever I'm getting ready for a new card to be released in Master Duel, Road of the King is one of the resources I look to a lot. I really like looking at the OCG more than the TCG because the OCG meta is a lot closer to Master Duel than TCG. TCG meta is like very much its own thing, but this list not only looks really solid, but it actually is on a very bare minimum amount of fusion monsters. Of course, when you think White Forest, you do think Synchro, but you also think, well, Azamina, you can't summon like Azamina, Mauricio or Ilia Sylvia, which does end up being a pretty decent drawback. However, the inclusion of Fydraulis Harmonia might just be enough to circumvent that. Now, this list is 39 cards, unlike the others I've featured, which were 37, because here we do intend to go over 40. I think 42 cards is totally fine for a deck like this that has a lot of like these one-ofs that it really doesn't want to be opening. It would much rather just be searching them, right? So I think playing over 40 cards is particularly pertinent for that. As always, we're on the Malong and the Packbit Enigmaster in order to have our Harmonia targets. And yeah, as mentioned before, the only fusion monster we're on here is Guardian Chimera, and it's not like this is part of our turn 1 combo line every time. It's just a disruption option you can have off the Sinful Spoils of the White Forest. Now, is it worth it to go this far out of your way to play the Harmonia, in this case to not include the Azamina stuff? Because it's not just Ilia Sylvia's Negate you're missing out on. Mauricio and Deception. Deception of the Sinful Spoils is a pretty good starter for White Forest and Azamina lines, but without access to it, we have that many fewer options to get our plays going. Of course, there's also the fact that we're missing out on the potential of using like Saint Azamina or just, you know, Azamina, the 4K fusion monster. Of course, no Link monsters here, so that really doesn't matter too much. It just means we're losing out on like Little Knight, which is totally fine, but you are making some compromises here, more so than other decks we've looked at so far, to be able to include the Fydraulis Harmonia. This is one of the first examples of a deck where I'm like, I think you could make an argument for or against Harmonia in a build like this. But in White Forest in particular, if you are looking to use Fydraulis Harmonia, I think this kind of Elfnote White Forest build is definitely the way that you want to go. And there's a lot of flexibility to this, right? Like, we're on 3 DML star, but this card is also searchable. So if you really want to just play 40 cards, you could just go down to 1 copy, and then obviously, yeah, slot in the 3 Fydraulis Harmonia. But again, since we're not playing Deception or any other Azamina stuff, I like having more options to get our plays going. But we still have, like, you know, all of the White Forest starters and the Elfnote ones as well. And our final list that I'm going to be showing you today is Synchron. This one's really, really obvious, right? Synchron is already a deck that plays 15 Synchro monsters in the extra deck and never does anything besides Synchro Summon. So it is naturally going to be a deck where Fydraulis Harmonia would slot right on in. Or so you might expect. The thing about Synchron in particular, though, is that the extract is really, really tight. So this is taking from a build that I had a few months ago on the channel, back when the Assault Sonic Warrior first came out. Now, granted, it's been a minute since I've toyed with the Synchron combo lines. We did have Elfnote Synchron a lot more recently, but we already showed 2 different Elfnote variants in this video. I didn't want to have it, like, all be Elfnote, so I'm pretty sure that you could readjust the main deck here and simplify the combo line in such a way that you don't need to play like all 15 of your extra deck cards. But here, in order to make room for Golden Cloud Beast, Malong, and Itting Master Pack Bit, I had to cut out the Stardust Charge Warrior, which is going to be this one here. Now, granted, there's not too much difference between playing this and Malong, right? Because really Stardust Charge Warrior more than anything is just a level 6 non-tuner body for you to be able to synchro into and clean up board space while still being able to synchro climb. Yeah, it gives you a card draw, but like you're not banking on that for the combo. So that is a pretty easy one-to-one replacement with Malong. However, another card I had to drop from the extra deck to fit the pack bit was actually the Black Rose Dragon. This one I'm a little bit more concerned about. Even though you don't use it as part of your turn 1 combo line, for going second in Synchron, Black Rose Dragon is one of your most important monsters. You could just make this swap right here, like just not play the pack bit Itting Master or Itting Master pack bit at all, and only have like the 1 target for Fydraulis Harmonia. Again, this is another deck where we do want to be above 40 cards, so you would still just add 3 Harmonia to this list and be at 45, and I think that'd be completely fine. But you could get away with something like this. I mean, how often does the second, you know, Harmonia target really come up? And if you really, really have to, you could still just dump another, you know, like random Synchro monster that you don't think you'll summon and still get to be able to destroy a card with Harmonia. But I don't know. This one, it is a little bit tougher. You would think Synchron would be a pretty natural fit for the Fydraulis Harmonia, but yeah, like I said, I don't know. I did kind of find myself struggling a little bit, but I do think if I took some time to sit down, clean up the list and the combo lines, it'd probably be a lot easier to find room for it. And trust me, in the near future, whenever we get Star Junk Synchron and other Synchron support from the Overframe collection, not only do this deck's combo lines get a lot simpler, but they get a lot more powerful as well. I think that there's a decent shot whenever we get Star Junk Synchron that this will actually be like a tier 3 deck. I think Synchron has a shot to finally help break itself out of Rogue, and I think that Harmonia might actually end up playing a pretty pivotal role in that, but we're just gonna have to wait and see as time passes. All right, so those are 5 different decks that I would try Fydraulis Harmonia in as soon as it comes out here in Master Duel. Of course, there are plenty of decks that you could play Harmonia in, whether they are synchro-based or, as we saw in the case of Mitsurugi, if your deck doesn't care about the extra deck at all, then you could just play Fydraulis Harmonia anyway. Really nice to have that extra disruption through the Malong, Itting Master Pack Bit, or any other synchro monsters you're sending as well. Like I said, overall, I do think it is going to be really important to pick up a playset of this card. Even if you're not planning on playing any of the decks I showed you, there is so much opportunity for future decks to include Fydraulis Harmonia. It's going to kind of be one of those hand traps where, you know, you look at a deck and if it's synchro based or if you don't care that much about the extra deck, the question kind of becomes like, why aren't I playing Fydraulis Harmonia? So for future proofing, even if you're not on like Kewl Tune or anything like that right now, I think it's a really good idea to still pick up a playset of this card. But for the time being, that's all I really got to say about it. So that's going to do it for now. This is Hexlex. I'm about to sign out. Before I do, though, we got to give an extra special thank you in the outro, not only to our Patreon subscribers, as mentioned earlier, but our YouTube members as well. So let's go ahead and do that now. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.